In my research for this podcast, I came across a video from 13 years ago of you winning the under 12 no gi British Columbia Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Championship as a member of the RDC Jiu Jitsu Academy. So, belated congratulations on that. It probably feels like another lifetime. And
Yeah.
that kind of brings me to your first tweet ever on Twitter. It's February 17th, 2021. And it says, "How can you guarantee an afterlife? Create ideas that last longer than you do." And I'm curious, if Elon sent you to Mars today, what idea of yours do you think would last the longest?
Hmm. It's interesting you brought up the jujitsu. No one's ever found that. I always laugh because sometimes I'll look it up and I'll laugh at how long ago that was and just think back to it. So it's funny you found that. I also have football footage out there too. But I think one thing that's coming more prevalent, although I don't talk about it as much, is something I'm going to start incorporating more, but lead with your heart. And that was something that came up with for me when I was on ayahuasca a few months ago, and just learning to lean more into vulnerability. Because I think that's something I've gotten a lot more comfortable with, and something I've had to lean into as a man growing up, and learning that it's not something to shy away from. It's something you need to do, because a lot of men, or a lot of people in general, they're scared to be vulnerable. And it's not until someone takes that leap first and actually says, hey, like, this is what I've experienced, and it may be uncomfortable to talk about, but it gives other people permission to say what's on their mind or what they're feeling. So a lot of the times I'll talk about my experience with my parents or growing up or whatever difficulty. And it's not until I talk about that other people reach out like, yo, like this really, like I really resonated with this. And I had a similar upbringing, and thank you for putting this out. And it's a common theme I've noticed throughout my whole journey is the more I talk about this stuff, the more I give people permission to feel certain ways, or I validate people, and I make them feel like it's okay to be them, and that their struggles, they're not going through it alone. And that's something I want to continue doing, and saying like all these different things, like growing up as a man, or drug addiction, or doing psychoactive substances in the jungle with strangers, stuff like that. And that's although I haven't like specifically said lead with your heart, it's something I've kind of hinted at with my messages in the past, but that's something I want to talk about more specifically. So that is something I'm working on, and that's something I want to leave people with.
I think you do a better job than you probably give yourself credit for. When I first came across your work and just your personality online, you have kind of this like macho air about you. You're in good shape. You got a deep voice. You come into these rooms, you're just cracking jokes. But it's evident, if you spend any time kind of digging into your content at all, you're very vulnerable. You're very open. You're very caring, and you're very empathetic to people. And I've realized that one of the biggest keys to success in my writing has been this like intense empathy for the reader, to be able to craft things that you can just know how they're going to take it in as they read it. And I'm curious, do you feel like your empathy and your softer side has played a role in helping you get content to go viral?
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, growing up, I was raised by my mother, and she really, I think I went too far on the sensitive side. I definitely was, because I cried a lot with random shit. And I was a mama's boy. But learning to harness that, control that, and maybe feel emotions, but don't let it affect me in a negative way. But I can still like feel it and empathize for other people. And yeah, it's played a huge part, because I always think, okay, why should the reader care? It's not just like me. It's like, no, like what's their relationship to this content or to me? And I think about, okay, what's the benefit to the reader? What situation are they in? And I filter a lot of my content through that lens. And yeah, I 100% think, okay, that's been a huge part of why I've been able to craft some content that has gone viral for myself and my clients. And also speaking of my client's voice, because you got to have empathy for their situation and what they think and their ideas, their tonality. And I think having that empathy and that interest in other people has played a big part in that. So 100%. I think, and especially in the business world too, because a lot of men and women in business, they think very logically, and that's why they're very good at business. They don't have the emotion affecting them. But also, when it comes to creating content and more creative work, that empathy is lacking with a lot of people, and they can't put themselves in other people's shoes, or they can't think in the mind of a beginner or feel that empathy for them, like just do the thing. It's like whatever. Well, no, people have all these things going on, they limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, and all of that. And it's not until you start to really empathize with those people that you're like, okay, well, let's craft content this way, and it'll reach them in a certain capacity and get them to engage. And I think I think you first have to craft the message to kind of what people want to hear, and then you can tell them what they need to hear. Once you kind of bring them into your ecosystem, you slowly raise the level of awareness.
Yeah, I like the way you frame that. And I was just talking with Nicholas Cole on the last episode, and he has something that he said to me that always resonated from his work, and he reiterated on the podcast, which is something you just said, which is that you are not the main character, the reader is. And I think a lot of beginning writers need to really take that in. It's something that a lot of people suffer from when they're just kind of like, oh, I'll just tell my journey and then people will like me. And it's like, no, they don't care as long as it needs to actually relate to the reader, and they only care about your journey so much as it helps them. And there's a book that you mentioned, The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And you learned something about your thoughts and that you are not your thoughts. And that message is actually the thing that changed my life reading Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, maybe 10 years ago. That was something that basically transformed everything that I do, the entire way that I interact with the world. And I've found more recently that building brand has, it's not kind of a personal growth journey. It like quite literally is a personal growth journey as you put out your thoughts and feelings into the world and get real-time feedback and have to adjust to the market. And so I'm curious how content creation has kind of fueled your self-development.
Yeah, so the main thing is writing, especially with Twitter, because at least back when I started on Twitter, I sound like an old person, but back in my day, when Twitter had 280 characters, not even like 140, but 280 characters, it forces you to refine your thoughts and to cut the fluff. And Jordan Peterson has this great little small snippet of one of his lectures where he's just talking about the benefits of writing and how you become absolutely deadly when you learn to write. And it's because writing and thinking, they're the same thing. Writing is just focused and concentrated thinking.
No one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think, because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake, and those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way.
You got your pen to the page or your keyboard to the page, and you're forced to think about one thought, and you're forced to articulate that in a way that is cohesive so someone else can understand what you are trying to convey. And if they don't understand, then it's a sign that you don't understand, because you can't simplify it in a way that makes sense. So that was a huge thing for myself, and it continues to be, for learning things and synthesizing it through my experience and my filter of knowledge and articulating that. It forces me to cut the fluff and make sure I can simplify concepts. And to simplify the concepts, I have to understand it. And it has really, really helped me understand my ideas better, my philosophy. And the more I write, the more I can articulate my thoughts and pause. Like I don't know if you notice, I pause a lot now, and that's because I'm just thinking before I speak. Before I would talk in ums, ands, and uhs, all that stuff. But the more I write, the more I cut those unnecessary filler words, and the more I can think and articulate myself better. But I believe content creation is one of the best things you can do for learning. And because you articulate thoughts better, you get to test ideas, different hooks. Like, oh, did this capture attention? Oh, it did. Why did this piece of content go viral? Why didn't this one work when I use this variation? And you can get a better understanding of psychology of other people, because it's just applied thoughts and you're getting that feedback. It's super powerful. You don't get that if you just write some words and you don't publish it, but by publishing it, you get that feedback, and it's super powerful for thinking about, okay, why did this go viral? Why did this resonate with people? Why did this flop?
Yeah, I quote that exact Jordan Peterson moment all the time. I think like when he talks about writing, it just like fires me up because it's like it's true. It's like, and I don't know if you've seen the conversation he had with Jocko Willink about it, and they were talking about like Jocko's like, I majored in English. And he's like, because I literally knew that you needed to write to, like, in the military, you need to, like, to get your guy a promotion, or to, make a proposal for, we need to do this strategy and go, this direction. It's all written. And so it's like writing just applies everywhere. And it is that controlled focused thinking. And it's so powerful. I noticed another thing in our stories that overlap, which is crypto. We both got into crypto around the same time. I think I was just like a few months before you. It sounds like you kind of bought the top, but then you just continued to buy all the, because you said 2018. I'm guessing you bought the top, but then you bought all the way down for years. And just like, that's what I did, was like tripling down on my research and my investment and my conviction, and just kind of knowing what I was seeing, believing it, and then putting my money where my mouth was. And so, can you speak to the importance of conviction, not just with crypto, but also with investing in yourself?
Yeah. So I was fortunate. I bought right after the big crash of 2018. So it still went down for the following years, but yeah, I just kept throwing money in. And like, when you think about it, if you want to be in the top 1% of any area of life, well, by definition, you're doing something that 99% of people aren't. And I looked at, okay, so everyone bought crypto at this point in time, and now everyone's saying it's dead, it's never coming back. But I'm looking at these few smart people, these people that are way smarter than me, like Naval, and they're talking about the future of crypto and how these things work in cycles. And as I looked at them, and I thought, you know what? These people have way more money than me. They're more successful. They have way more years of experience in this industry. I think I'm going to listen to these people and not all these news sites telling me crypto's dead and all of that stuff. And I started researching it more and looking into it. I was like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of utility for a lot of these coins. And even though my friends and family thought I was fucking nuts for throwing all my paychecks into obscure cryptos, I trusted myself, because I looked at the people that were telling me not to do it. But I was like, are these people in a position I want to be in life? No. Hey, they're good people, but they don't have the money I want. They don't have the success I want. They don't have traits I want most of the time. So just logically, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to, I think, I'm just going to listen to the people that are farther ahead and where I want to be in life. And even though it took 3 years of doubt from other people, it eventually paid off, and it really changed my life in a lot of ways. And it was huge for me. And it was one of those lessons where I learned, okay, you got to learn to trust your own judgment. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, but a lot of the time you're going to be right too. And as you continue to trust yourself, you're going to continue to learn lessons, and you're going to continue to improve on your judgment skills, and it's going to compound over time. And yeah, I think you need to take risks on yourself, because I think if you don't develop that skill or that that trait, well, what are you going to do with your life? You're just going to play it safe. You're comfortable your whole life, and then you're not going to learn anything. You're just going to play it safe, and you put your money in a savings account. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But I mean, sure, it might have been risky, but I mean, I learned a ton, and it's something that's translated to every aspect of my life. And investing in mentors was definitely a higher ROI than crypto, because knowledge compounds and you can actually use it. Like, it's within your control. With crypto, it's like it goes up and down, sideways, zigzags, whatever. Knowledge and skill sets, that stuff, it's like, well, I have that in my back pocket. I don't care if there's a recession or whatever. It's like I can adapt and navigate these environments, and skills in one area is going to help me in other areas, and it's just going to compound. So that was a lesson that translated to a lot of areas of my life. And again, a lot of people thought I was crazy for spending a lot of money on mentorship, but 100% changed my life. And not even just for the skills and knowledge, but also the rooms it got me, and the network I've built because of it, and the friends I've made, and the opportunities that has led to. It's been life-changing. So there's all these like secondary benefits of investing in yourself and taking risks and all of that stuff. But yeah, it 100% changed my life, and I encourage other people to make the same leap. Maybe don't like bet your house on stuff, and make sure it's calculated to some degree, but yeah, like learn to start trusting yourself more and more. Maybe so that's something you got to build up. Don't bet the farm, but maybe like spend $500 on a course or something and see how that turns out. And maybe it's a completely horrible course, but you're like, okay, why was this horrible? Could I have vetted this person a bit better? Could I have done X, Y, and Z? But yeah, I would encourage people to invest in themselves, and don't be afraid to go against the grain, because that's where all the lucrative opportunities are.
Yo guys, real quick, if you're enjoying the Louder podcast, you're gonna love Louder Spaces. My partner Virgil and I are hosting Twitter Spaces rooms 3 times a week. And what we've done is create a real audio experience. We bring in influential guests, we use custom audio intros, bring in outside clips, and we have guests react. And we have what's called Amplify, where we bring up audience members and we all share the love by liking, commenting, retweeting their content, and getting them tons of exposure. You could be the next person we blow up. Just come by Louder Spaces on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Follow me on Twitter at GregLunt27. See you there. I like the framework of kind of like seriously asking yourself, are you doing the things that everyone else is doing? Or are you actually doing something different, depending on your goals? If you want to live an extraordinary life, are you doing things that are outside the norm? And that can be a little cliche, but like when you actually ask yourself that question, it's like, maybe I need to change things up, or maybe I need to take an extra risk. It's funny. You said knowledge. And as soon as you said it, I'm thinking like Ty Lopez in the garage. And I mean, even that, like that guy spent like $15 million pushing that ad. And that was something that probably, I bet you if he asked anybody at that time, they were like, you're absolutely nuts to do that. But it ended up putting him on the map, you know, and building an entire career out of it. And you mentioned mentorship. And I know that Peter McCall was your football coach growing up, and that was a mentor for you. And that's one that, you know, maybe was just serendipitous, but then of course, like you said, you know, you can pay, and you put a lot of money into mentorship with Dan Coe at one point, who ended up being a great friend and a roommate. And that kind of changed your life. Do you think mentors are important for everybody? And how can people go about finding them?
Yeah, 100%. I believe everyone has a mentor, whether they realize it or not. And no matter how big or small, like we all have built ourselves on top of the shoulder of giants, or whatever the saying is. But yeah, I owe everything to the people that have helped me, and friends, and yeah, like mentors, like my football coach. And it comes in different aspects. Like some mentors are teaching you skills or knowledge. Others are there for emotional support and helping you through challenging times. And a lot of them, one of the biggest parts of mentorship is they believe in you more than you believe in yourself sometimes. That was a big theme for me throughout my whole journey, even up until this year. And it's been huge for me. It's a lot of the times we know what to do, but we just doubt our ability to do it. And it's not until we have someone say, hey, you SOB, you can 100% do it. And they look you in the eyes and like, I believe in you and you can do this. And that's when you're like, shit, like I can do this. And you don't always need to pay thousands of dollars for a mentor. You can, like, if you're struggling for money, you can get mentorship for free. Books, podcasts, YouTube. It's asynchronous. Maybe you're not talking to them, but there's a ton of people that produce content for free, or they drop a book like Alex Hormozy drops a book for 99 cents and mind-boggling amounts of knowledge on offer creation. Now the next book's going to be on leads, and it may not be as good as that back and forth mentorship, but at the start you got to use what you got, and you use that knowledge to maybe make some money, and then you use that money to invest in a course, and maybe you make money from that course and you use that to invest in a one-on-one mentorship or a group coaching program. And you're finding different pieces of leverage along the way, and you use that to your best of ability to create more leverage, and then kind of it's an endless cycle. You're constantly leveling up, and that's something I continue to do to this day. I've spent a lot of money this past year. As I made more money, I've spent way more money on mentorship and coaching, and it's paid tenfold. And yeah, so like, don't just think it's, I got to pay $10,000 for a coach or something. It's like, no, just get it from books, podcasts, all that stuff.
That's always where I got it. I always wondered, like, how do I find a mentor and stuff? But in the meantime, I was always consuming all this stuff online. And it's funny, we've already mentioned, I consider like 3 different guys have been my major mentors, and we've already mentioned 2 of them in this short time, with Eckhart and Jordan Peterson. And the other one was Gary Vee for me, played a big role, back when I was first exploring, my business interests. And, your success has been phenomenal. You're one of the biggest ghostwriters on the internet, and there's so many writers now, aspiring writers, joining Twitter and looking at this ghostwriting thing and spinning up their own agencies and taking on clients. And it's really starting to snowball a little bit on Twitter anyway, maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but what are some of the benefits of maybe positioning yourself as a newer writer, as a ghostwriter, rather than like a freelancer or something like that? And how do you see the future of ghostwriting overall?
Yeah. So one thing you can do to position yourself differently is, one, focus on getting leads for people instead of followers. A lot of business owners, they don't give a shit about followers. They just want more money from coming from their business. They want more traffic to their offers, or they want more newsletter signups and all of that. So the closer you can tie yourself to making money. So let's say someone spends $10,000 a month on you, but you make them $15,000 a month. You're not getting fired because you have a positive ROI, opposed to, okay, if I'm getting someone 10,000 followers a month and they're paying me, $10,000, well, it's like, if times get hard, it's like they don't need those followers, they want it translating to dollars. So the closer you can tie yourself to making someone money, the better off you're going to be. And also, even if you are selling followers, you can position yourself differently because you're like, hey, do you want a bunch of cheap followers from third world countries that can't afford your offer? Or do you want targeted followers from these certain demographics that are in, say, the B2B space that are interested in your offer? Sure, you might get fewer followers. I can't promise you're going to get 10,000 followers a month like these other offers, but I can promise you're going to get quality followers, and you're going to get leads, and a warm audience that is a bit more targeted than these other people. And then also, you can become a full stack ghostwriter, and that's something I'm starting to teach in my cohort. But if you can create content on Twitter, and you know how to navigate LinkedIn, and you know how to navigate Instagram, and maybe you know how to write a email newsletter, and maybe you know how to create short form video content, you're this full stack ghostwriter, well, then that's way more valuable than a one trick pony, because you can grow them substantially more on all these different platforms. Or maybe you want to, I don't know, maybe Twitter's slow for few months, you're like, okay, well, we can pivot and put more focus on LinkedIn or whatever route you want to go. So doing that and learning the different social medias can be huge. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is knowing how to get leads and really tie yourself to making more money for your client than they pay you. It's huge.
You've been able to identify some pretty solid ghostwriters. You've put on Taylor Simmons, you put on Legacy Builder. How do you scout these people? Is it just by chance? Are there things that you're looking for? And what are some of the things that new writers can do to stand out?
They're hungry, man. That's the one thing I noticed. You tell them, you give them advice on something, and they just execute right away. And like, what's next? I did that. And I can tell, oh, this person switched on. But other people where I might have been helping them for months and they're just not getting results, like I'll tell them what to do and they're okay. And they just won't do it. Or they'll just be like really inconsistent. But the people that get results in anything are the people that are consistent and they repeatedly do it. And they're also very self-sufficient. Like they're not asking you dumb questions. I don't think there's some dumb questions, to be honest, but they ask you, like they'll do stuff and then they'll get feedback and then they'll ask you questions. But people, they're like, oh, what about this and this and this? It's like, dude, you could have asked ChatGPT. You could have, like, they'll ask me a question. I'll just Google it for them. Like, here you go. It's just kind of like that self-awareness or that self-sufficiency. It's a common thing I've noticed with the most successful people. They're not waiting around, waiting for permission or asking silly questions they could have just Googled. They're not looking to have their hand held. They're executing on shit and they're consistent with it and they're getting shit done and they're very switched on. And it's more of like a demeanor. Like you can take someone that has no skills. Like I've seen it multiple times, like Talon, Legacy Builder. Well, Legacy Builder he was killing it with the content. Mike Bolton, like people like that, they're just like really hungry for it. And you give them the information, they're just taking off with it and they're just executing. So that was the biggest thing. And I can usually tell right away. I'm like, oh, this person's a killer. They're going to absolutely crush. Cause they're just like really they're hungry. You can just spot it. It's really interesting.
I love that. Yeah. I think that goes for a lot of, like you say, like it's not just writing. That's basically for business, for sports, for whatever you're doing. It's like if you have that motor, like you're going to break through one way or another. And so it encourages the winners like you or whoever else is, noticing them on the come up. It's like, all right, let me feed this guy. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yep.
it's going to pay off for him and maybe for me even. It's just like a mutually beneficial thing. And we like to see winners win, and,
Yep.
you have this framework for writing called GAP, right? Where it's like the growth content, the authority content, and the personality content. And I think a lot of people have some similar three-pronged approach to like a well-rounded personal brand. What I've actually figured out for myself, what's working is from the growth side of things, instead of writing threads, I'm just speaking in spaces a hell of a lot, and I'm getting a lot of high growth from that. And then on the timeline with the writing, I'm doing more like actionable and personality content. So I'm not really like going viral that much with my tweets anymore, but I'm still getting the growth from the speaking side. So I found like this balance for me. I'm curious, like, because you've been hosting some spaces of your own and you also speak in them as a guest a lot. You were just on Louder Spaces with us. Thank you for that a couple of weeks ago. Can you speak to like the versatility of spaces and the different ways that you can use it to either grow or maybe to create more authority and brand building?
Yeah. So I tell my students this in the cohort, spaces are one of the best way to grow. And the reason I would classify it under personal content because it's way more nuanced. It's way more like the people listening to this right now, you probably feel a deeper connection to me listening to this rather than reading my tweets because you hear the nuanced takes I have. It's not just like one word or one sentence. You hear the tonality in my voice, you hear the inflections, you hear my personality, you can hear me joke around with stuff and all of that. And that's huge for building rapport and building that connection because you're like, oh, there's a real person behind this, you can connect on a way deeper level. And even more so if you have video because a lot of it's body language and, seeing how someone moves their hands, or are they very robotic? Are they doing robot dances on a podcast, shit like that? And you just get a deeper sense of who they are. So yeah, I think spaces are one of the best ways to grow, and the most underrated too, especially if you're doing it on a regular cadence and people come to, oh, okay, so Greg does a space every Sunday at 9 a.m. and you build that cadence and people come to expect it, and you build up this core audience that comes every Sunday at 9 a.m. And then that just grows and grows because there's that regular cadence, like, oh, we show up at this time, and it just grows in this big thing, and it compounds. And then, next thing, over a course of 6 months, it's just like 400, 500 people coming to every space because it feels like something they get value from. It's part of their routine. It's a habit, and they get value from it. So yeah, spaces are huge, especially you play the long game too. And then the different cross pollination. So if I go to a space, you connect with me, you're also leveraging my audience, and people that follow me are like, oh, who's Greg? I like how he talks. I really connect with him and his thoughtful questions. I'm going to follow him. And then now you got this increased network effect. And then also connecting with big creators, you get to build that rapport with them. And next thing you know, they're on a podcast with you, and, you leverage it even further, and, you can reach out to anybody, or then you can say, hey, I got Dakota on the podcast last week, and you can leverage my name to get bigger content creators on. And then you're like, hey, I got, Talon and Dakota and Charles Miller and all these people. Do you want to hop on the podcast? Because it's like extra social proof. So it's something that compounds on itself, and you can leverage it in different ways. So yeah, spaces are huge. And then you can repurpose it too, which a lot of people don't do. But you can take your Twitter spaces, or X spaces, whatever the hell it is now, and you can go to the recording. Like there's a program or a website where they record the Twitter spaces, so you can take that recording. Okay, now you paste it on a Google Doc and you put it in a Google Drive, and you do a DM giveaway. I interviewed Dakota Robertson on how to make 10K a month as a Twitter ghostwriter. Want me to DM it to you for free? Like this post, comment, ghost. That rhymed. And I'll send it to you for free. Boom, you just had a Twitter DM giveaway that you can leverage multiple times throughout the year and use that to grow your audience. And yeah, repurposing stuff, and it works well.
You said so much good stuff there. I think Art of Purpose, I think he doesn't even like leave his replays up. He just brings them into his private community, right? So they're like, once you have to be live for them, and then they go into an archive. So it's kind of similar to, in a repurposing sense, but just the flexibility. You mentioned the cadence, how important that is. And that's something that Virgil Brewster and I, my partner in Louder, are really taking seriously with our spaces. Like we're like, okay, at first, he was like, I think 2 times a week. I was like, no, 3 times a week. Like we're going 3 times a week. We're going to blitz this whole thing, and we're going to be there every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And people are getting used to it already. And it's only been a couple of weeks. And like you said, there's the networking aspect. There's the repurposing, of course. There's the practice public speaking. Speaking is similar to writing, right? In that it's the version of thinking. And so it's just all these things that you can benefit from. And then, of course, growing your audience. And you've grown your audience across multiple networks, and people don't, on Money Twitter, not everybody realizes that you have 225,000 on Instagram. You have 30K on LinkedIn. You got 30K on Threads. I see you still posting there. A lot of people have fallen off, but you're still going strong. What's kind of like your overall content strategy at the moment, cross-platform, and how do they all play off of each other?
Yeah, so Twitter is the hub. So Twitter is well, I love Twitter. The energy on Twitter can't be matched on any other platform.
It's called X, Dakota. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Xer. The Exorcist.
Money X.
Yeah, money. X.
We're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah, straight up. But yeah, so X, Twitter, whatever the hell it is, that's my main testing ground. And that's where, because you can bust out tweets or X's, whatever the hell you want to say. You can bust them out like crazy, and you get that feedback like right away. You're like, oh, this got 1,000 likes. There's something here. I was like, okay, cool. So I will take my best performing content from Twitter, and I will put it on Instagram. And I'll do it as a carousel, or I'll do it as a single post, or I will turn a tweet into a short form video. Maybe add a little bit of pizzazz. But since it's validated on Twitter, it's got a higher chance of doing well on Instagram. So it's a bit more refined on Instagram. I'll add a caption to a lot of the posts to elaborate on the idea. But I will then take the post from Instagram and I'll put that on LinkedIn. And I will copy paste my content from Twitter, just put it on Threads, because Threads is a copy of Twitter, X, whatever the hell. And yeah, it's just finding ways to leverage all these, the main hub of Twitter, and bring it on the other platforms. So it's basically, okay, go vertical on one platform and then go horizontal on the other platforms from that one piece of content. And then what I can also do, say I write a thread and it pops off. Okay, the idea here, this is a base of a script for YouTube. I'm starting to get into YouTube. I'm going to start probably in next month here. And now I got all these different ideas I can validate on Twitter and all these other platforms. And okay, or maybe a reel pops off. Like, hey, I could turn this into a long form video. And it's just finding different ways to leverage one piece of content. I call it content multiplication. It's like you don't stop at like one post. Oh, it did well. It's great. So no, it's like you have this, the idea is validated. So let's use this on different platforms, and then also store it in a swipe file. So say 6 months down the line, you just go to your swipe file where you store all your best content, and you repurpose it. You say it in a different way, or you maybe change up a few words or whatever. And I've done that consistently. Like each month I'll go in on my Twitter. Okay, what's the most engaged tweets? And I'll put it in my swipe file. And it's been super powerful. I've been doing this since 2020. So I have all this data and I can see the patterns. Okay, when I talk about this idea, it really resonates. When I use this format, it really resonates. So I can use that in different angles on different platforms. And it just gets more and more powerful over time.
Yeah, that's great for people that, are maybe posting to Twitter and they post a couple times a day and they're like, okay, I'm doing okay, but like I want to do more, but I don't want to like overflood my Twitter feed or whatever. It's like, hey, maybe, taking some of your validated ideas and looking at other platforms is a good move, and, pushing yourself to go on video or whatever it may be. So I want to ask you a multiple choice question here. Out of these three things that you've done, which was the biggest dopamine rush? Getting a client, 10,000 followers in 2 days, landing a client for $35K a month, or shooting rocket launchers in Cambodia?
So the 35K was, it wasn't a month. It was just a one-time payment. Just want to make that clear. But dude, damn, that's a hard one. I think getting the client 10K followers in 2 days, because I was just like, dude, I am the shit. Like I was, my ego was like, I'm the shit. Because the first thread we launched, 300,000 likes, man. It was crazy. So I was just buzzing, because also he paid me 25K to get him to 10K followers in like 60 days, or I think it was 60 or 90 days. And I just did it in 2 days, like done. He got featured in Sahil Bloom's newsletter, all this stuff. And I was like, I am the shit. And I was like, you know what? Like, even though it's going to cost me, because I think I used like probably $1,000 or like $500 in retweets to get him that. I was like, you know what? Let's use the $10,000 budget I allocated for this. And so I spent the entire $10,000, and we just ripped retweets on we did a thread a day, rip retweets, got him to 60,000 followers in 30 days. He was just mind blown. I was mind blown. Like, holy shit. He had a really good niche though, the productivity niche. I know how to write for that. And I was really proud of that, because like no one's ever done that, at least not to my knowledge. So I was really stoked on that. But shooting a rocket launcher is a close second. And 35K was cool, but yeah, I think, yeah. So the 10,000 followers, rocket launcher, and the 35K deal.
Yeah, so you heard it here first. If you can make it on Twitter, it's actually better than firing a rocket launcher. So, this is combining. This is some X meets SpaceX type moment. Listen, Dakota, I really admire you, man. I think that what you built is incredible. I love the way that you carry yourself. I love the way that you bring other people along with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and bringing the heat as always. I heard some things from you today that I haven't heard before, and I know the audience will appreciate it as well. Where can people find you online? What do you want to point them to? And do you have any parting thoughts?
Yeah, so you can follow my OnlyFans at Dakota. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, my main hangout spot is Twitter at wrongs to right, WRITE, or Instagram at Yo Dakota, or Threads at Yo Dakota. LinkedIn, fuck LinkedIn. A bunch of robots on there. But yeah, like parting thoughts is, I mean, if you're hesitant on starting your journey with content creation or business, just know it's normal. It's normal to feel like an imposter, but just doing it anyways and just talking about your experience. Like you don't have to be an expert. Just teach the people a few steps behind you, and the way you do that is you start educating yourself on on an actual skill that you can teach others or something you have interest in, and you don't pretend to be an expert, but you start reading from experts ahead of you, filter it through your own experience, and you teach the people a few steps behind you. And you do that over a long enough period of time, you're going to grow your knowledge base, you're going to get more experience, and you're going to be able to help a lot of people. But everyone has an interesting story and has an interesting perspective, and what you say and the way you say it's going to resonate differently than what I say or what Greg says. And I would encourage a lot of you to, if you're thinking about it, like definitely go in and expect to be dog shit at the start. We all were, and sometimes we still are, but that's part of the fun. And you got to be cringe to be based. I think that's a Dan quote that I heard. Yeah, so that's my parting thoughts there. But I appreciate you having me on, brother. This was great.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we'll do it again soon.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.